Sarah realized something was wrong because of a photograph that wasn't supposed to hurt. She wasn't searching for anything. It was the middle of an ordinary Wednesday. She had 10 minutes left of her lunch break, half a sandwich still sitting on her desk, and a coffee that had already gone cold beside her keyboard. She was scrolling through social media without really paying attention, moving past recipes, vacation pictures, and videos she wasn't actually watching. Then she stopped. Megan had posted a photo. 3 women sat together on a rooftop restaurant patio with city lights behind them. They were leaning toward each other, smiling naturally at the camera, with the easy comfort people have when they already feel included somewhere. Megan sat in the middle. Sarah stared at the image longer than she meant to. The problem wasn't the picture itself. The problem was that Sarah knew about this dinner. 3 weeks earlier, Megan had sat in Sarah's apartment, wearing one of Sarah's oversized sweatshirts, curled up on the couch with her legs tucked under her. She had been nervous. "I don't know if I even want to go," Megan had said while staring into her tea. "I hate showing up where everyone already knows each other." Sarah remembered laughing softly. "You say that every time." Then Sarah had spent nearly 40 minutes helping her choose between 2 restaurants. Megan kept changing her mind. Sarah remembered opening menus, comparing photos, joking about overpriced desserts. Eventually, Megan picked one. Sarah remembered all of it. And now, Sarah was staring at a photograph from a dinner that had happened 3 days ago. 3 days. Megan hadn't mentioned it once. At first, Sarah barely reacted. She immediately started explaining it away. Maybe it had happened unexpectedly. Maybe Megan forgot. Maybe it wasn't important enough to mention. People forgot things all the time. But then something uncomfortable happened. Sarah started remembering. Not big things, small things. The kind of things that never feel important while they're happening. Over the last few months, Megan had slowly become harder to reach. Not dramatically. She still texted, still called sometimes, still sent videos of dogs or stupid things she saw online. Nothing obvious had changed. Except suddenly Sarah realized that everything had changed. Megan used to tell her things first. Now, Sarah was learning about parts of Megan's life accidentally. A new coworker, a new coffee place, a funny story involving people Sarah had never heard of. Sarah wasn't the person receiving news anymore. She had quietly become the person catching up on it afterward. A few days later, they met for coffee after work. Megan acted completely normal. She talked about a new TV show she had started watching. She complained about a neighbor upstairs who apparently dropped heavy objects every night after midnight. She laughed about a customer at work who had confused 2 employees and spent 5 minutes talking to the wrong person. Sarah sat across from her and watched. Watched Megan stir her coffee absent-mindedly. Watched her brush hair behind her ear. Watched her smile. Everything looked normal. And Sarah suddenly realized she didn't know how to ask the question sitting in her chest, because the question sounded ridiculous. "When exactly did I stop being your person?" She didn't ask. Instead, she said casually, "I saw the pictures from dinner." For a second, Megan froze. Not long, maybe a second. Then she smiled. "Oh, yeah, that happened kind of spontaneously." Sarah nodded, but something about the answer sat strangely inside her, because it had come too quickly, too smoothly, like Megan had already prepared it somewhere in the back of her mind. After that day, Sarah started noticing things she couldn't stop noticing. Whenever they spent time together, Megan checked her phone more often. Sometimes she smiled at messages. Sometimes she started saying things like, "Oh, remind me to tell you something later." Then later never came. One evening, Sarah sat alone on her couch and opened old photos. She wasn't even sure why. Maybe she wanted proof that she was imagining things, or proof that she wasn't. There were years of pictures. Road trips, birthdays, random late-night grocery store runs where they had laughed over something neither of them would probably remember now. Sarah remembered Megan crying after her first terrible breakup because she couldn't understand how someone who once loved her could suddenly become unfamiliar. Sarah remembered staying overnight after Megan's father died because Megan had been afraid of sitting alone in a quiet apartment. She remembered sitting on kitchen floors at 2 a.m, talking about impossible futures. Marriage, children, cities they wanted to move to someday. Growing old. Sarah even remembered one specific joke they used to repeat. They had once promised each other they would become old women who complained about everything and argued over who walked slower. Back then, they had laughed so hard Sarah nearly spilled coffee all over herself. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she understood something she didn't want to understand. She had always believed important relationships ended because of obvious things: fights, betrayal, cruel words, big moments, visible damage. But maybe some relationships disappeared differently. Maybe some people didn't leave all at once. Maybe they slowly built another life while keeping you standing at the edge of it. Weeks later, Sarah met Megan again. Nothing felt wrong on the surface. They had dinner, they talked. Megan laughed at the right moments. Anyone watching them would have thought they had been best friends forever. When they said goodbye in the parking lot, Megan hugged her exactly the way she always had. Then she smiled and said, "I'll call you soon." Sarah smiled too. "Yeah." Megan got into her car and drove away. Sarah stood there long after the car disappeared. Because for the first time in 9 years, she wasn't sure what hurt. Whether she missed Megan, or whether she missed the version of Megan that no longer existed. And standing there in the quiet parking lot, she realized there was something lonelier than losing someone. It was realizing that they had been leaving for a long time while still standing right beside you. If this story felt familiar, there are more like it here.